In the heart of Philadelphia in 1777, the city pulsed with the tension of revolution. The air outside smelled of damp earth and coal smoke, but inside a small wooden workshop on Arch Street, the scent shifted to something softer: warm candle wax, drying ink, and the faint sharpness of freshly cut paper. 11-year-old Daniel Cooper sat at a rough-hewn table, his small fingers brushing over the uneven surface of a sheet of handmade paper. Every fiber mattered, every stroke mattered. This wasn't just drawing. This was history taking form. His mother worked quietly beside him. Supplies were scarce in wartime, especially things like cloth and proper dyes. Even thread was hard to find. But she had stacks of thick, fibrous paper from a local printer, and she was determined to create something that could lift the spirit of men exhausted from months on the battlefield. Paper flags were fragile, but they were fast to produce, and that speed mattered when soldiers left for camp in droves, hungry for any symbol of unity. Daniel dipped a thin brush into the jar of deep blue ink. The liquid glistened under the flickering candle. He held his breath as he pulled the brush across the upper corner of the paper, forming the canton. The strokes absorbed quickly, leaving a rich patch of blue. He wiped his brow with the back of his sleeve, trying not to smudge anything. At his age, he wasn't fighting with muskets or marching in formation, but this was his contribution to the independence his father was away fighting for. Outside the open window, wooden wheels creaked and boots thudded across cobblestones. Soldiers moved restlessly through the streets, occasionally stopping by the workshop. They came with tired eyes, cracked hands, and worn coats, asking for a simple paper flag to tuck into their packs or carry into the next skirmish. They knew rain or wind might destroy it within hours, but it didn't matter. The flag wasn't meant to last, it was meant to remind. When Daniel finished painting the 13 stars in a perfect circle, he lifted the paper toward the window. The sun caught the ink, making it glow faintly. "Do you really think this will help someone?" he asked in a whisper, not wanting to disturb the fragile moment. His mother paused her cutting, looked at him softly, and said, "Hope doesn't need to be strong, Daniel. It only needs to exist." Before long, a soldier stepped inside, dust clinging to his boots and fatigue heavy in his shoulders. He accepted the paper flag Daniel offered, holding it with a reverence usually reserved for sacred objects. "This will remind me what I'm fighting for," the man said quietly. As the soldier walked away, the fragile flag fluttered in his grip, thin, delicate, easily torn. Yet in that moment, Daniel realized something powerful. Even the weakest material could carry the strongest meaning. And in a war where freedom was still uncertain, that meaning mattered more than anything else. By 1889, the United States had grown far beyond the original 13 colonies, stretching across vast plains and mountain ranges. In a small Kansas town, inside a simple one-room schoolhouse, the air was filled with the smell of chalk dust, old wood, and warm sunshine. This was where Miss Clara Wells, a young teacher with calm eyes and a determined spirit, believed that history began, not in books, but in the hands of children. The schoolhouse was modest. Wooden desks lined the room in uneven rows, each marked with scratches from years of use. A large cast-iron stove rested in the corner, still warm from the morning fire. Outside, the prairie winds whispered across golden fields. Inside, Clara stood with a stack of cream-colored paper and a box of crayons, looking out at her students, children of farmers, blacksmiths, and shopkeepers, all eager to learn but equally eager to run outdoors and play. She placed the stack of paper on the front table. "Today," she told them, "we're going to make our own American flags." A murmur rippled through the classroom. The children straightened in their seats, eyes widening with curiosity. Many had seen the flag flown at the town hall or on holidays, but few had ever drawn one themselves. Clara continued, "Our flag has 38 stars now. Each one represents a state that has joined our great nation." A boy with freckles raised his hand. "Miss Wells, how do we fit 38 stars without making a mess?" Clara smiled. "The same way the country fit them, patiently, one at a time." The children giggled softly, and the room came alive with motion. Clara handed out sheets of paper, each one slightly textured, perfect for crayon strokes. Small hands grabbed red, white, and blue as the students began drawing their own version of the U.S. flag. Some made careful lines, counting out each stripe with precision. Others colored with sweeping strokes that went beyond the edges of the paper. Stars came out in all shapes, round ones, pointed ones, tiny dots pretending to be stars. Clara walked between the desks, pausing to encourage, correct gently, or praise a creative idea. Near the window, a quiet girl named Emily sat hunched over her desk. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tried to draw clean stripes. Her father had fought in the Civil War, leaving her with a deep respect for the flag but also a fear of not honoring it correctly. When her crayon slipped and smudged part of the red stripe, she froze, biting her lip to keep from crying. Clara noticed. She knelt beside the girl and spoke softly so no one else would hear. "Emily, let me tell you something important. Our nation is not perfect. It makes mistakes, learns, and grows stronger. Just like you." Emily looked up, her eyes brightening a little. "So, it doesn't have to be perfect." "No," Clara said, "it only has to be made with heart." When the bell rang for recess, the classroom emptied in an explosion of excitement. Children raced outside, holding their paper flags high. The prairie winds tugged at the fragile sheets, bending and fluttering them wildly. But the children didn't care. Their flags weren't made to last forever, they were made to feel something. As Clara watched from the doorway, she realized that the simple paper flags carried more than colors and stars. They carried childhood pride, the echo of history, and the hope of a growing nation, bound together by the innocent hands that shaped them. In 2025, the National Museum of American History was quiet in the early morning. Before visitors arrived, before children pressed their faces against glass displays, the museum existed in a kind of peaceful stillness. In a climate-controlled archive room deep beneath the main floor, historian Michael Reyes unlocked a long, flat drawer. A soft hiss of air escaped as he pulled it open, revealing one of the museum's most delicate collections, paper flags preserved across centuries. Michael adjusted his gloves and leaned over the drawer with reverence. The first artifact he examined was a small paper flag from the Revolutionary War. Its edges were brittle, curled inward like leaves scorched by time. The blue canton had faded to a dusty gray, and the red stripes were no more than faint pink shadows. Yet even in its fragile state, the flag held an unmistakable power. He imagined a boy in 1777 brushing careful strokes of ink, unaware that his creation would survive more than 200 years. He carefully lifted the fragile sheet with both hands, feeling its weight, or rather, its surprising lack of it. Paper this old seemed almost weightless, as if history itself rested on the verge of disappearing. But that was the magic of preservation. Something meant to be temporary had become lasting, all because someone once believed it mattered. Setting the Revolutionary-era flag back in its protective cradle, Michael opened the next drawer. Inside lay a collection from the 1800s, paper flags drawn by children in rural classrooms. One caught his attention immediately. It was uneven, with crooked stripes and charmingly lopsided stars. A tiny name was written lightly in pencil at the bottom corner, Emily W. He smiled as he imagined the girl who had drawn it, probably frustrated that her lines weren't straight, probably unaware that her small, imperfect creation would someday rest in a national museum. He pictured her teacher guiding her, telling her that the heart behind the flag mattered more than perfection. Those moments lived on in this simple sheet of paper, passed forward in time like an unspoken message. Then he examined a newer piece, a paper flag created by a group of students in the days following September 11, 2001. Unlike the old ones, this flag was bold and bright. The stars were sharp, the stripes vivid, and the margins filled with handwritten messages, "We stand united. Never forget. Together we heal," all in the handwriting of children who wanted their flag to be more than a drawing. They wanted it to be a promise. Michael stood there in the quiet archive room, feeling the weight of centuries settle around him. Each paper flag, whether faded, crooked, or boldly colored, was a snapshot of a moment in American memory. Though fragile, though never meant to endure, they had survived. Not because of their material, but because people had held them, valued them, protected them. After gently closing the final drawer, Michael rested his hand on the cabinet and whispered to himself, it was never about the paper. It was always about the people. And in that silent room, surrounded by the soft echoes of history, he felt deeply connected to every hand, young or old, that had ever drawn a star or stripe on a simple sheet of paper, keeping the story of the American flag alive.